Good morning everybody and welcome back to another video. Now if you were around last year you may have seen me tinker around with the concept of bringing Lego Zelda to the Booknook sub-theme, or perhaps maybe I should call them Gamenooks instead, as if you're like me you may have a few different boxed games on a shelf and well, if this idea applies to books then why can't it apply to video games as well? Either way, this was an excuse to try and compact the Deku tree into a Booknook style display piece, and it was questionably successful. Around the same time, we ran a little competition over in a Discord server, and as the reward for winning our certain competition, I was obliged to produce a custom set on something very similar, and we ended up with this Goron Booknook concept that we're going to take a look at today. And of course I've also taken the brand new set 77093 and had a go at turning that into the Booknook, largely because of the Balrog comparisons which I made early on and said that they were quite similar, but also just because, well, I thought it'd be fun and an interesting challenge as well, and the stylings are on point, lots of fire in that one. So without any further ado, let's go and take a look at our first model for today, and let's start with the Ganon set.
So I'm going to be completely honest, I've been rather shameless about this, and this really is just the original Balrog set largely. I mean, you should be able to notice some similarities, such as obviously I've left the fire on the sides untouched, I didn't even bother changing out these pillars, and of course I'm using a frame, and that's largely for ease. However, I have gone and reskinned the entire obviously front, and I tell you what, let's just open it up for a second so I can show you, because I did redo the entire middle. You can see we've actually got the Ganon Tower section back there, and of course all the fire down the front, and then big boy Ganondorf in mid-transformation at the back, flying out of the Balrog poses, because again, I was really lazy with this one. And then we've got Link with the Megaton Hammer and the Hylian Shield down the front here, and then I've actually attached the Triforce to the front as well. I really like, again, the part of the concept behind this is for sort of compact displays in a different orientation, and I think especially if we had this sort of wedged in with stuff on the side, that this wouldn't look too bad at all. I was unsure how I was going to feel about sort of having the rock come up so high. Part of this was just so that I could use parts from the official set, and again, yeah, I didn't use any of my own parts here. This is literally just a combination build of the Balrog Booknook and the Ganon set here. And I've taken off all the tiles and I've stuck these to the front here, and I've tried to do a bit of rock work, and I was worried that I wasn't going to like how it comes up too high, but it's kind of like a valley. I kind of don't mind it, although it's not great. It wouldn't be how I'd do it if I had a limited path, that's for sure. And then that transitions into the Ganon Castle texture, which was originally what I wanted to do along the whole things. Yes, I could have done the inside, but there's kind of no need. I could probably just put the light bush grey tiles back from that I took off the original set. And then I could have obviously changed over the top, but again, I said I was being lazy. I meant I was being lazy. We have Navi here. She's just coming out of one of the studs and she's sort of hay listening. There's that Triforce and that fire there. And what I love particularly about the Booknook line, and where I think the Balrog one excelled, is obviously the comparison is the Balrog and Ganon are actually very similar builds, but it's just the way that he sits in this archway and the way he sort of looks like he's popping out of it. It's quite a compact scene, but it doesn't feel like squishied too much. Again, especially if we have some walls on the side, which I think we're going to do now. But yeah, let's just take a quick look from the side, because again, the other reason I wanted to use this as a base is because you already have the flames for like the arena. So again, you can sort of open it like this, and it's like, why is he in Moria or like a cave system? But as far as it being a closed Booknook, I really don't mind it. I could have obviously supported this, would have been easier. I left the tower untouched, it was just in playset mode. And yeah, this is an interesting concept. I think this one works better than the Deku tree one, which I'm going to show you next, which I think was a bit of a flawed concept, if you guys remember from last summer, but you have to let me know. However, I do think it's an interesting middle ground. Now remember, of course this works on a bookshelf, but of course I think the bigger usage is to put it next to games, which we're going to do for the Deku tree, but I actually don't have any Switch cases with me right now. So let me grab some books. And I've shoved it over to the wall. We were a little short on books actually as well. The chaos of having everything in boxes. But yeah, you see, once it's compressed, again, you would put nicer books next to it. You have to be a little bit aesthetic, but this isn't too bad. Let me show you the other one before you guys get bored. And I think the last one is definitely the most exciting one.
So I promise the third one's better, because let's be real here, this one did not turn out great. Now this all stemmed from the concept of trying to make the Deku tree a little bit more compact, and also just thinking of some fun nerdy ways to display it and sort of change it up. And I began off quite curious to see how this would turn out. However, things slowly took a turn for the worse, and as you can see, I very much gave up by the end of this. One of the big problems, of course, with only using parts from the original set is just how big the tree is. I think it really is underestimated how much the size of this model really makes an impact. And then of course all of the leaves and details, and the fact that there's isn't really an arch structure. I was originally planning to have sort of the two front trees sort of curve up over the top and then form the structure that way. I then went for this opener concept, and while it doesn't look awful, you just want the original really, you know, or like a compacted version of it. So this one wasn't super effective at achieving the goal. Perhaps if I had supplanted it into an existing booknook, or if we get ones in the future, the more forest set, we could try this again. But without shrinking down the tree, I think this one would be very difficult to execute with this sail. It's fragile, it doesn't look very good, it's quite small height-wise, at least compared to the other Booknooks, which are all quite tall, and yeah, just not my favourite outcome. But this next one is the proper deal.
Those two were both based off the official sets that we've had released so far, and I think they succeed to varying degrees of success. However, as I mentioned, I was actually charged with designing one of these as part of a competition that we ran a couple of years ago, and our winner was the wonderful Goron enthusiast, who had come up with this idea for a sort of medigoron sort of cave set, and I sort of merged that with the idea of the Booknooks. I can't quite remember, as I said, I've been working on this for far too long, given that it was supposed to be a competition thing, but we merged it into an idea of a Booknook, and we sort of recreated his sort of cave setup here as if it was sort of a tribute to well, Gorons and of course Ocarina of Time. Now, the thing to know about this one is it is actually a little bit shorter, and that was deliberate because I'd sized it to Switch cases or Wii U cases. I can't remember again which one here, but it's sized for slightly shorter books, slightly shorter shelves, which I think is an interesting compromise, and quite frankly also the scene doesn't need to be that big. This setup would of course include a Link minifigure and then of course Medigoron, who I'm really pleased with this shaping of, and you can sort of see here sort of through the rock crevice, which actually is ironically quite similar to the rock techniques we just did on the Ganon one here. You can sort of see him hiding out in the back, which I think is quite nice. But of course there's more details to this scene. So for those of you who don't remember, Medigoron is the one that sells you the Giant's Knife, which is the dodgy knockoff Bigoron sword, and is also part of the Bigoron sword trading quest. Medigoron also has a Majora's Mask appearance, although obviously he's not known by Medigoron, and then he is the one that sells you the powder keg. So all of this is referenced here as well. The Goron City vibes also continue because I've added this sort of furnace over on the right hand side. There's a batch of swords. Maybe these are the knockoff giant knives that he's sort of crafting. You can see they've got chimney that sort of goes in the way, and I really should have filled up this upper space up above, but it's just not necessary for this kind of prototype. Either way, I really like that the chimney is in sort of sand blue and dark red, and I quite like the shaping I was able to get to it as well. I was trying to make use of newer parts because for this model I didn't bother about recolors, largely because of the medium nougat recolors that were needed for Medigoron himself. Although I do reckon that this would be doable potentially in nougat in a different shade just as more time goes on. I would quite like to have this, I think, even though it looks a little bit unsettling from some angles. Beyond the bucket of swords in the corner, we also have on the other side a fair few details. We've got a shop set up. Again, Medigoron of course was not a shop sort of item holder, however I've just added a couple of bits here. You've got the claim check up on a shelf. This would have a sticker on it. It's a 2x3 tile, and this is of course part of the trading quest, although Medigoron totally shouldn't have that. We've also got some barrels down here, and these are of course representing the powder kegs from Majora's Mask. And then there's also a gossip stone as well, which is just a design taken straight from the Deku tree, because quite frankly this is not a numbered set, this is EX12, so I can just kind of do what I like and be a little more freeform. So got print on there. There's also a little table with a pot on it. This is some of the accurate details that we see around his area in Ocarina. And then up on the top shelf, this piece here is designed to represent what would be a brand new molded Bigoron sword, because I feel like that would be one of the draws to the set. And again, it's not a real one, so I don't have to think about sort of limitations. So yeah, I've got surrounded on details both sides. Of course it opens up just like the other nooks as well. Of course this one looks less good fully open, but like half open, this still kind of works, you know, like I'm kind of happy with this. No quote tile or anything here. Maybe we could do that Triforce thing that we did on the front of the Ganon one now that we have that as an object. I think it's cool that it could get used in a variety of places, which could be fun. And then of course, I think lastly, most importantly, of course, you have Medigoron, who is using 3 prints here. We've got these big cove dome elements, and again, the new curving sort of parts in the Lego catalogue are really helpful in developing this and actually fleshing out the idea of having a Medigoron, because he's so curvy, he just needs to be done using effectively specialized pieces, except for they're not specialized because they are quite used. And he's sunk into the wall here. You can almost imagine him sort of popping out the shadows. We're using the big curve elements for the top of his head, which are both of course have these printed eyes on it. They're 2 unique prints because of course it's mirrored, or else the eyes would be in all kind of weird positions. And then you've got a 2x4 tile that is printed with the nose print as well. Like, yes, you could argue that the eye positioning is a little bit all over the place because I have to work within the limits of where the parts are, because I'm not going to put a print over multiple parts for the eyes because you guys would riot for that. And also, yes, I'm aware that the eyes have been purple in some iterations, specifically in the 3DS remake. However, I tried it, it just looked wrong. We had to go back to blacks and go for more of a minifig kind of eye look, which I know seems strange for a character that is directly supposed to be a buildable version Goron, so you would expect more in-game accuracy for that rather than minifigure accuracy, but just trust me, I did purple, it looked awful. So we went back to the black, and this is now a classic NES with 3DS references, which is fine. I think I would have liked to include maybe a barrel with some rupees, you know, we could bring our rupee bag piece back into this, would be fun, but now that I'm thinking of these things, it really doesn't matter. This is more of a proof of concept just to show what the Booknook scheme could look like. This is an idea that I'm really glad to have brought to fruition, because as I said, I had this idea back, it must have been nearly a year ago to sort of look into the idea of visual scenes. It started, of course, with the Deku tree, and then obviously developed into this Goron one, and then now we've done it with Ganon, and I kind of feel like the idea has run its course. I still think it's a cool potential idea. I'd be interested to see if someone could do something properly snazzy looking with it, especially as gaming supplies are stuff that people do put on shelves, or like have little nooks around their TV and stuff where stuff like this could suit. Although at that point you might as well just put the Ganon set on a nook as well. So like, I feel like it's a bit of a moot point. But the idea to begin with was to shrink the Deku tree down and give it a more compact display option for people that couldn't let it sprawl, because that is quite a big model. And I do think that this Goron one, you know, sort of expands upon the line there. And I'm of course glad to be finally able to fulfill my obligation, one of 3 obligations I was supposed to fulfill as part of that competition that I have not yet done. We got there. But this was one I was particularly excited about because I adored the concept and I thought it was really fitting, given he lives in a cave as well. I should also mention, I kind of got distracted halfway through Medigoron, that his arms are overlapping in a really interesting way, and I really like how they are done to sort of look like they're crossed, like it should be from the game, of course. Yeah, so I thought that was really fun, and I was able to get the finger details. This was another issue of me character building at a larger scale, although this time without the limitations of having to rebuild it in real life, unlike some of the other builds we've done, such as like the Hinox or Hive Knight or the Bulborb and stuff, which have all had to be IRL buildable. So this made a change of pace for that as well. But there's not much else to this one, so let me know what you think of the Gamenooks/Booknook concept. Let me know if any of these 3 are ones you are interested in down below, of course, and if you guys have any ideas, feel free to get creative. This should be a nice bit of inspiration, and then of course tag me and share anything you do come up with in this idea down below, because I'd love to see it. But in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.